It's Bitcoin, y'all. I'm your host, Zoom Out. My day-to-day work life, I'm a bartender, and I get into conversations with people and talk to them about Bitcoin. And there's one thing that, as someone who's looked into it and studied it and paid attention in the past couple years on this thing, one thing that surprises me is that most people don't realize that Bitcoin has a hard cap of only 21 million. And then what doesn't surprise me is most of the time when you say that to people, they don't necessarily grasp why that's important. And so I just want to focus on just that one thing. And there's going to be, I'm going to use the same analogy as I used in my previous video. So bear with me if you watch that. But the first form of money might have been when we were living in caves. And as cavemen and women, we would go out and hunt together. And then we'd bring stuff back to the cave. And then if I brought back, let's say I killed 3 rabbits and brought them back, and somebody else killed 4, then you make markings on the wall that showed what value I added to society and somebody else did, so that we would know what our families were owed. So when it came time to divide up the rabbit meat and the furs, we would know, okay, this person brought in 3 rabbits worth and this person brought in 4 rabbits worth. So the markings on the wall are a ledger, and that is what money is. What we think of money as today is something that we transact with, and that is really something that's issued on top of the ledger. So in this scenario, you have the markings on the wall that represent the wealth. Some might represent like berries and nuts and wheat that was gathered, and some might represent animals or fish that were hunted or fished and brought in. And so then you could potentially take some type of object and use that to represent that wealth. So I used the example of shells because that's one that's actually been used in history. So if we had only so many shells and they weren't super easy to come by because this cave is not right close to the ocean, and so that might be a good thing to use to now when you bring back your rabbits or your berries, you get some shells in exchange for them, and then you can use those to trade for furs or meat or fruits or nuts later. And so that's essentially what like a dollar bill is, right? It would be like the version of the shell on top of the ledger. And the example of shells is one that is important in history because when migratory humans came through and saw what was happening, and they were coming from closer to the ocean where shells were plentiful, they just got a bunch and brought them through the next time they came, bought all the stuff, left the people with nothing. Now there's too many shells, it floods the market, and then that collapses the money. It collapses the economy because you don't have the wealth anymore. You don't have the rabbit meat and the furs. So that is why it's important to use something that is scarce when you are transacting with it. That's why gold worked so well as a money for so many years, is because it's pretty scarce. It's not as easy to come by. Now, there's never in the history of humankind been a perfectly scarce thing that we could use. Gold's not perfectly scarce. We don't know exactly how much is there that we could pull out of the earth. We don't know if in the future we're going to be able to, fly to some spaceship to some comet and harvest a bunch of it and bring it back and then have way more gold than we did. These are things that are more scarce relative to other things like shells. And so they work better as money. But 13 years ago, for the first time ever, we were able to create perfect scarcity. We created scarcity in the digital world that has only 21 million. Each one is divisible. And it was set up to be divisible to 8 decimal points. We can increase that in the future. If it needs to be divisible to 10 or 11 or 15 decimal points, if more value is added to society and you need to make the unit smaller, that's possible, but we can't change that it's only 21 million. And we made it perfectly scarce because anyone, if you take the time to learn to do it, can download the entire ledger on your computer. It'll update every 10 minutes when new transactions are added to it. And you can keep an eye on where all of that money is, all of the Bitcoin. So it's perfect scarcity. And if scarcity is the thing that makes money work, then it's a better version of money than we've had at our disposal in the past. So that's all I got. I just wanted to explain, not exactly, I've talked in other videos about some of the ways that the scarcity is accomplished, but I just wanted to explain that why scarcity is such a big deal, why it's a huge monumental achievement, technological achievement, to create something that we know exactly how much there is and how much will be coming in later and how much total will be once all of it is in circulation. That's the first thing that Bitcoin brought forth as a new revolutionary idea, is perfect scarcity. So thanks for listening today. Leave any questions if you have them in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back.